Okay, my name is Bradley Barmore. This is for Philosophy 101 with Mr. Krantz. My presentation is on whether God exists or not. Despite the fact we've done it several times, I'm going to use some of the same arguments that we used during class and in the William Lane Craig and the Austin Dacey arguments. I'm just going to go through my PowerPoint here, and I'm going to send that to you, so just go along with that. The first video is a non-factual video of Albert Einstein. It pretty much just gets you on the right mindset of what I believe, which I believe that God exists. Some background information. Just simple theism is people that, or a belief that God exists. Atheism is God does not exist, and agnosticism is people that are on the fence. They don't know whether God exists or not. They're uncertain. Some arguments for atheists. The hiddenness of God. This is pretty much saying God, if he were real, he would show himself. He would be present in today's world. Success of science. This states that we have a lot of success in the scientific world without any of God's help. Pointless suffering. This is very simple. There's a lot of suffering going on in the world today, and if there was an almighty God, people think that there would be a lot less suffering, or even no suffering. Evolution. We have one example of evolution is what Austin Dacey had stated in his argument against William Lane Craig was our bodies were made by this almighty God, but he put a lot of flaws in our body, such as our esophagus and trachea being so close together when sometimes we'll swallow and take down air, or we'll inhale food and choke, and that aspect. Some arguments that God does exist, the cosmological argument, the fine-tune argument, and the moral argument. Now, the column cosmological argument is, I'm just going to read this. Everything that has a beginning of existence has a cause of existence. The universe has a beginning of existence, therefore the universe has a cause of existence. The universe has a cause of existence, then that cause is God, therefore God exists. There's a fine-tuning argument. The fine-tuning argument pretty much states that the universe is put together so perfectly, and the earth was put together so perfectly, so we could live. And just the slightest little change, there wouldn't be any life form. It wouldn't be life permitting. The world wouldn't be life permitting. And I read this example somewhere along my line of research. If we were to take a trip to Mars and we were to find this big steel dome, and we went into this dome, and it was life permitting. There was trees, there was food, and people could survive. We could say that yes, a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake or some natural disaster or something put all this steel and all these trees and everything in this dome, and that it was life permitting. We could say that, but it's not very believable, not very plausible. It is probable, it's not very plausible. And that's pretty much what the earth is. It was this thing created for people to live in, and like William Lane Craig said, it is probable that it was an accident that all these things came together and made Earth life living, but it's really out of the question because of how perfect it is. And then finally, the moral argument. I'm just going to read this. This argument states that it is a fact that all human beings have a moral sense. Knowing the difference between right and wrong, there are three explanations. Morality is an instinct, morality is a social convention, and morality is the creation of transcendent moral power. Now, this argument is based on a process of elimination by C.S. Lewis that I read out of a book. And since the two explanations, which were morality is an instinct and morality is a social convention, because those are inadequate, there must be a transcendent moral power, which would be the Almighty God. And then just the last slide. If I were to do this in class, I'm sure everybody would be riled up right now, especially Rita and a couple of other classmates. But just a little comic relief. This man is standing on something, and he asks if God really existed, he'd reveal himself to this man. And then there's a far out view, and he's in a man's hand. Now, just to finish this up, I got this out of this book. It is The Quest for Truth, an Introduction to Philosophy by James Walter Gustafson with Joseph B. Onyango Okello. And it reads, "It may be naive then to wish for more evidences for God than those already available. We have the universe flung out around us. We have minds that can grasp some of the wonders of our environment. We have unique moral and aesthetic capacities and the rich history of a religious heritage. Perhaps to ask for more is just unreasonable." Now that's out of the Bible, John 7:17. And just to close up my presentation, since it's almost Christmas, I'm going to end with something from the Santa Claus. I'm going to quote Judy from the Santa Claus, and she states to the Santa Claus, which was Tim Allen, "Seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing." I'm going to leave you with that, and thank you for a great year. Merry Christmas.